was never really a trad because again it's like the inverse of like, not the inverse, it's like the opposite side of the political correctness people, like obsessing with an aesthetic, obsessing with a class thing, obsessing with um, it's just very image based and there's no intuition. Like I think you need to be able to feel out your own path and to become your own person and sort of individually tell how you should behave. And because I don't like vulgarity and I don't like people who sell themselves out because they feel that's what they should be doing or because they want to gratify some need in themselves. Like I do believe in temperance and control to a certain extent. Like I'm not really a control freak. Um, Only in some ways, in like an OCD way, right? Because that is a tendency that my personality has is OCD, and that that I have, that I struggle with that, but um, it's not like a identity kind of thing. Just neither of these things appealed to me. Like, yeah, I became aware of like there is a liberation to be around the trad people because they do at least acknowledge that these values are important. That yes, as a woman, you are a woman, you should be a woman in the world, and you are different from being a man, which is not something that I was raised to believe. So I always struggled to like determine my own behavior and what I really am because I had no awareness that I was different, and I think um, and there is a case to be made for acting like a warm and feminine, loving person, which I can intuit that. But I think in a way of like protecting yourself when you're younger or looking at how you should, like where you should go in the world, how to negotiate with people. You're not really aware of your own femininity and that your own natural vulnerability in that way. And um, perhaps that is why so many people have like sexuality either in like a totally removing it and becoming a nun kind of way, or in like the opposite of like needing the gratification and needing to be wanted and needed. Because I feel like it's everything is just all over the place, and so there's no real I don't know, there aren't any rules, there isn't any guidance, none of us know what we are or how to behave or how to be. Yeah, like I've also always been aware of like the interest in something being faulty, because you can't remove fault, right? You can't, like I do believe in trying to, I wouldn't necessarily say in a platonic way, like aiming to fulfill some ideals or like some ideal vision of beauty and truth. I've never really believed in total perfectibility, perfection, or if you live in this trad way, everything's going to be fine. Like I do think I believe in total depravity, and that we have a sinfulness that can't be removed. And that the sin allows also then for beautiful things to like strive out of it, or that it just can't be helped. Like maybe somebody shouldn't be David Bowie or Ethel Cain, or who in multiple ways fail the trad ideal of living or the conservative ideals. David Bowie and Ethel Cain and Caroline Polachek. I mean, Caroline Polachek, she's 38 and doesn't have children, which I do find a bit strange. But then also, so what? I mean, she's beautiful and really an incredible musician, and I love her. I think she's incredibly inspiring, and she's an INTP as well. But I think that I was always aware like things are going to be imperfect, and that just makes them what they are. Like there was never like this idea to strive towards like this unreachable video game reality idea of a lifestyle that somebody should have, or an aesthetic that somebody should have. And why is it always a beige aesthetic? Like what is this thing with always posting like classical busts that aren't painted? I mean, yeah, okay, that's normal. I'm Greek, right? So I take personal offense here, but like religion always seems very personal, and it seems strange to convey it purely through this aesthetic. I mean, maybe I'm doing the same thing because I have kind of a gothic, Puritan aesthetic interest, and that is my imaginative landscape. Actually, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like an Ingmar Bergman. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of room in incidents and accidents, and for this kind of for things that are just interesting to come out of them. I never saw the need for this restraint or this fake, like doing battle with things that don't really exist. It seemed there was a lot more going on in immediate reality than to to create like a fake intensity, like, you know, I'm fighting for the days of whatever in Catholicism or whatever in Orthodoxy. It didn't seem real. Like, real life does happen on the ground, and there are people around you who are just normal people having normal lives in parishes who need you. Like, and a normal life has enough tragedy and enough pain or accidental horrors that you know, if you're really trad and really following Christ, then you can go and notice that, and you're individual enough to sit with that and to deal with it in your own self. Because I think a lot of, you know, I don't want to idealize artists in the Gen X boomer way of sex, drugs, rock and roll, partying, American dream, fame, Hollywood. Although to a certain extent I do, because I'm part of this culture and because I am interested in that, and who isn't interested in it? And I love performing. You know, I've done theatre and I've been in bands, and I've my job is a tour guide, so a lot to be said about the interplay of life and theatre and communication. But I think, yeah, not to idealize artists and to idealize flaws, but then they happen anyway. You know, nobody has like the perfect lifestyle or the perfect. You know, we are all sinners, and we can't uphold everything. And I was just too aware of the thrill and the fun and the beauty in the accidents, or in the faults in our own personalities, to ever really follow these trad things. You know, what is being trad? I don't want to be David Bowie. I mean, I don't want to be David Bowie. I think David Bowie is overrated amongst a certain type of person, but still interesting. You know, still, I do like David Bowie. I just don't like the sort of valorization of dead people or people who have nothing to do with us, really. It just seems, I don't know, like it always seems like it should be part of like a deep and personal exploration, and not something that you sort of like set up as an idol in the world. And, you know, it just seems very Gen X and really irritating, and sort of like a dead world. It's like living in a dead world. It's like a dead language at this point, because what does this have to say to me right now? You know, only by going in with depth, the same way that you might read Augustine in depth. I think if you read these things deeply, or you go very deeply into the music in this personal and exploration, or you share it with others, that can be interesting and creative and nourishing. But then to just set them up as like these banal idols, like, oh, David Bowie kind of thing, it annoys me, and it seems really facile and not, I don't know, unreal. But like, even in my own personality, like, yeah, okay, it's frustrating to not know what half of your identity is, to have a father who lives in another country and you've never met him. But it's, you know, that's not the ideal trad sort of family lifestyle. But it's also, it's not, you know, I think it's produced me in this interesting way, and that couldn't help but happen. I mean, who are you going to point the finger at for it? It's just, that's just life. You know, just as David Bowie did cocaine and slept around and whatever, so what? That's just, I'm sure he had his reasons. I never knew him. Same with Ethel Cain. You know, you could say as a trad, oh, she's a trans person. She's promoting this and that lifestyle, or denigrating religion, and it's like, well, or she's Protestant in aesthetic, and that's degenerate. It's interesting, and it's real, and it's real in some symbolic way. I don't know. I actually have a lot that I want to say about Ethel Cain. Like, I think she's fascinating. I don't understand it in the ugliness, the obsession with aesthetics, the obsession with talking in a, I mean, I'm sure there are profound experiences underneath it all, but it just seems like writ large as a culture, or writ large as like an oppressive thing, it's just another way of like fencing yourself in because you're scared. It's not, you know, just as the left are doing it, and just as they have no real concept of like being a living person in between sin and love. It's like not being able to straddle those lines, and not being able to really, I don't know, it just seems like a fear to individuate, and so it was never particularly interesting to me, although the people are a lot more comfortable to be around than the left, just because I think they are more politically aware and more religiously open than the majority of people. But then all people are to an extent. You just have to find the best way of communicating with them. Like if you really want to communicate with somebody, you can. It just takes a sacrificing of your own egotistical need of a specific way of expression, I think. You know, and I say this, I was an edgelord in university and alienated people, but then I knew that I had that problem, so it's not, that's not to blame those people. I mean, yeah, okay, it's alienating and it's frustrating and unnecessarily cruel, some of the things that people say and do, if you're perceived to be some right-wing zealot, but it's also your own fault. Like, don't be a right-wing zealot if you actually want to communicate with people, or you actually want to be close to people or to have conversations with them. Although it is hard because, yeah, you know, I'm very reasonable now, and or I try to be. I am actually. I think, you know, I would say very genuine things or make flippant jokes, and politically correct people couldn't take it because it chips away at their own sense of self or sense of what they're comfortable with friends, because everything is all over the place. So you need these like little picket fences to set up to know what's a good person, what's a bad person. But it's also irrelevant because that's not actually living with others and being with others and doing anything useful. It's all on this idealistic plane, same as the trads. So yeah, why I'm not a trad, you know, I see the appeal of conservatism, and I do value things such as intimacy and stability and steadfastness, but I don't see the need to sort of fence yourself in any way, or to dismiss other people, and not to want to communicate or understand or to be a real person on the ground. You know, I don't want to live up in the air on some like role play game or politically ambitious reality.